let's move on to Heng's talk. Heng Chen is a research advisor in the currency department at the Bank of Canada. And Heng, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. I'm going to share my screen. Thank you so much. Thank you for everyone. So today I'm going to present the cash and the COVID-19, the effect of lifting containment measure on the cash demand and usage. And this is joint work with a lot of partners and also colleagues from different agencies like Ipsos, CIPHER Canada, USC, and also the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta. So we receive a lot of feedback and help and otherwise from these partners. So to provide you the context of this this presentation, so as you see, in March 11, 2020, the World Health Organization declared the COVID-19 pandemic, and of course, the media report of concern of virus transmission via cash. And the Bank of Canada, as a sole issue of the banknotes, we want to understand how this COVID-19 impact people holding cash and usage. So in order to do this research and understanding of the nuance behind that, this presentation, we're going to look at the two different approach and tools. One is we're going to look at the high level, micro level data, which is using the network data from the banknote distribution system data. So this high level micro data will tell us how many banknotes in circulation, how is the withdrawal and the deposit from the financial institution to the Bank of Canada or the Bank of Canada to the financial institution. Once we have this general high level, micro level of the data, then we're going to look at on the individual level, which is from the consumer survey, to understand the behavior of Canadians and their cash holding and usage. So here is the picture I want to show you is coming from the so-called the Bank of Canada banknote distribution system data site. So on top of the figure, you see the dark blue line, which is the note circulation in 2020. So as you can see, once the WHO declared the pandemic, there's a sharp increase, which is the trend of the slope of the note circulation in the public. So as you see, when the mobility restriction began, to live in Canada, across Canada, then actually you can see this the slope of the curve become flattened. So compared to the 19, which is the note circulation, which is in the green line. So actually this suggests the pandemic have increased the cash circulation over by $8 million. Hence, it's going to be very important to understand where this cash went, and for example, to either consumer, merchant, or financial institution, and for what purpose. And in this presentation, we're going to focus on the consumer payment behaviors. So before we further dive into the survey data or consumer data, so let's also point to some other data sources from administration data sites, from CIPHER Canada or high frequency network data, to have a sense of the change of consumer shopping behaviors. So in general, we observe the spending overall has declined in the recent period, and this negative shock from COVID-19 not only reduced the cash payment, but also other things like say credit card, debit card as well. But as you see, there's also a limitation from this high level, micro level data site, because we only can know the general trend, but we also want to know the decomposition or compositional effect from the individual perspective. So we want to ask the question, could it be a shift in the relative share, or it's kind of like mix of the method payment? So this is really an empirical question. So you under to do that. So it's become very imperative to collect timely survey data so that we can conduct evidence-based policy at the Bank of Canada. So in collaboration with many colleagues, so we came up with this so-called the survey program, which as you can see, we have this control survey, which is in 2019 August, which is we call the control survey before the pandemic. Then we have this COVID-19 surveys, which is we conducted in 2020 April. And then we have this 2020 July surveys, which is just opening the economy. So we work with the USC and the Federal Reserve Atlanta for coordinate the timing and content of surveys. And of course, we also work closely with our CIPHER Canada and the survey provider on the content and the detailed survey operations and the protocols. So here, try to put our survey and the sampling period on the content of the COVID-19 surveillance. So as you can see, how this the two surveys what I mentioned, one in April and in July, are benchmarking to the different severity across in Canada with the stringency, we can use the stringency of the COVID-19. So pretty much you can think about this April survey, it try to monitor the pandemic around the first wave, and this 2020 July, it tried to monitor what's the when the containment measures are lifted, what happened to consumer cash and payment behavior. So just give you overview of our consumer survey in terms of survey methodology. The first point is I want to point to you our consumer survey are not private sample, but then the question is how we can really make our survey result can be trusted, and we do a lot of statistical tools and methods to make sure we actually our result can be comparable across different surveys, basically apple to apples. For example, we want to make sure the survey design are similar across different frames and also different device and mode, and also we use the so-called covariance balancing through the calibration to control for the survey design. Basically, we benchmark as time invariant, but of course allow the census demographic to be time varying to make sure we really have this apple to comparison, and the changes are really coming from the underlying economic behavior, not from the artifact of the survey design. And of course, in order to further evaluate our quality, we also do this cross-validation with network data and also statistical data, which based on the same questions from the probability surveys. So let's look at this first result, which is actually tells about when the containment measure are lifted, which is in July. So actually we see pretty much they focus on the first row, we see more shopping opportunities occurred. So compared to the April, so general people make, let's say in April, only 80%, 83% people make a purchase in a week, but in July, this number increased to 94. And also in terms of intensive margin, in the April, people only made about 4 transactions per week, but in the July, due to the lift of the containment measure, this number increased to 5%. This number to 5 purchase in the past week. Of course, people having more shopping opportunities. Let's also look at how they're going to use cash in terms of probability of the last week. Of course, I also want to draw your attention to the first row, because the lifting this containment measure, people have a more physical shopping opportunities, and of course this allows the cash to be used more often compared to our April survey. So this probability of using cash increased from 36% to 55%. And the previous 2 slides talk something about the consumer side, but then let's also look at the supply side. On the merchant is how the consumer report merchant concerns on the COVID-19. So I want to draw attention to the last row of this table. So it's kind of self-reported by the consumer, that is, they are not able using cash at the merchant point of sale. Of course, due to the COVID-19, in April, this number is relatively high, about 12%. But due to the containment measure are being lifted, this number of the consumer self-report, they are not able using cash, decreased to 9%. And then of course, all the consumer side and also demand side and supply side will feed in back into the consumer cash holdings, which is we have all the flows. Let's look at the stock. So this paper and this table show you how the changes, which coming from 3 sampling period before, during, and after the COVID-19. So as you can when you look at the April, so this cash holding intermediate increased from 70 to 85, but after the pandemic, this number decreased to people usually hold about the $70 in their cash holdings. And of course, in the end, we also ask a question about whether you're going to have any plan to go cashless in the next year or in the next 5 years. So of course, I want to draw attention to the first row of this table. So compared to the April, so actually you see the people self-report, they say they are going to go cashless, is actually decreased from 19% to 14%. And actually, I want to draw your attention to this the number in the premises. So we understand the number without premises is a people self-report number, but of course, this was their state preference. But we also have a way to check whether the state preference align with the review preference. So the number in the premises is actually, we want to make sure conditional people say whether they actually have any cash or whether they use any cashes in the past week. So then, as you can see, these numbers right now in the July decreased from self-report 14% to this actual cashless about 6%. So actually, that is, as you can see, in the pandemic, the cashless index going up, and then after this mobility restriction being lifted, it's going down to 14 or 6% in terms of actual cashless. So in the end, to wrap up my presentation, so I also just want to show you these 2 more slides about how we want to ensure our estimate are reliable and also comparable to the previous. And also one thing we always do is try to cross-validate with Stats Canada perspective probability surveys. For example, we have the identical question and also a pretty much identical time period to ask a similar question about how Canadian preparation for the COVID-19. So actually you can see the first row is coming from our weighted estimate from our own consumer survey, and the second column is the Stats Canada from their public surveys. And these 2 numbers, I won't say exactly match, but in quantitative are pretty much in the ballpark region. So actually that shows the confidence of our estimate. And of course, this Stats Canada number, because it's coming from public survey, and they also have some random variation. So, but in general, our number are pretty much with Stats Canada. And of course, we always do the kind of cross validation. So the previous slide is about the April number, and this slide show you the cross validation for the July numbers. So I think that's the end of my presentation, and thank you so much.
Great. Thanks so much, Heng. So I'll now open up the floor to questions. Because again, if you have a question, you can type it in the chat or raise your hand. So we have one question coming in. Let's see, screen has changed. So one question, Heng.
Yes.
So does cash on hand include cash reserve kept at home? If not, do you ask about cash reserve?
Good question. So actually the slide that I show you is only about cash in their wallet, which is cash on hand. And then in the survey, we all definitely have the question also about other cash holdings, like in the safe or in the car or even the drawer. And we can also find similar, like say the trend during the pandemic, the cash holding in other place increase, but due to the, like say, the mobility or containment measure left, and this other cash holding decline. And but due to the time interest, I only present you the result on the cash in the wallet or cash on hand.
Oh, so cash reserve kept at home that actually declined early in the pandemic. Is that what you're finding?
Oh, it's increasing.
Increasing. Okay.
Yeah,
right.
But the remote containment measure left is almost go back to the pre-pandemic level.
Okay. Yeah, I think we've seen that there's been a general increase in savings, at least at the start of the pandemic, which also people may be saving in cash as well. So it's probably some combination of inability to use cash and demand to save as well in liquid instruments.
Oh, good question. So actually, that's as you point out, is a nuance because usually people are keep at home. Sometimes it's really hard to like say separate the cash on their wallet and the cash their home, right? Because they cannot have a lot of opportunity to go outside. So particularly at this time, it's hard to really separate that out.
Yeah. Another question. I thought it was also surprising that that there's relatively higher fraction I would have expected reporting that they found that someone turned away or refused them to allow them to pay with cash, which generally is illegal. What do you make of those responses?
Of course, maybe the first one, according to my knowledge, generally is merchant definitely can like say not accepting cash because right now in Canada we don't have like this strict rule to say, oh, you cannot turn away people paying cash, something like that. But I just want to provide the nuance is as you can see in the survey. So in general, around this time period, this percentage around 10%. But actually, I think we have a merchant survey around 2018. The merchant of refusing accepting cash is only about 3%. So in general, this number definitely higher than the previous year. So we see definitely even without COVID-19, I think in general there's an increased chance when you pay in cash, you'll be refused by the merchant.
I see. Interesting. Other questions in the audience? Well, please, if you have other questions, please feel free to follow up with Heng. And Heng, thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you.
So now I think we'll